There is a quiet force that moves through history, unseen but undeniable. It does not shout. It does not announce itself. It waits. It watches. And when it finally acts, the world has no time to react. This is the dark power of silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of intention. The kind of silence that belongs to those who understand a fundamental truth: the moment you reveal your next move, you surrender your advantage. We live in an age that rewards noise. We are taught to speak first, to share our plans, to broadcast our intentions. We confuse visibility with progress. We mistake chatter for confidence. But the masters of any field, the ones who truly shape outcomes, operate by a different code. They know that silence is not absence. It is armor. It is strategy. It is the space where power gathers before it strikes. Think about the last time you told someone exactly what you were going to do. Maybe it was a business idea, a personal goal, a confrontation you were preparing for. You felt a rush of relief, as if speaking it made it real. But what actually happened? The energy dispersed. The focus scattered. And somewhere, whether consciously or not, you gave others the blueprint to anticipate, to interfere, or to simply wait you out. The masters never make this mistake. They understand that revelation is a form of leakage. Every word spoken prematurely drains the reservoir of potential. History is filled with those who learned this the hard way. Empires fell not because they lacked strength, but because they lacked restraint. Generals lost battles not to superior tactics, but to premature declarations. Leaders were undone not by enemies, but by their own need to be seen as decisive. Meanwhile, the quiet ones, the observers, the strategists who kept their counsel, moved through the chaos like shadows. They did not announce their presence. They did not justify their patience. They simply waited for the exact moment when action would carry maximum impact. And when that moment arrived, they moved with precision that left no room for counterplay. This is not about secrecy for its own sake. It is about understanding the physics of influence. When you keep your next move hidden, you control the narrative. You control the timing. You control the psychological space around you. People cannot prepare for what they cannot see. They cannot defend against what they do not expect. Silence becomes a mirror. It reflects their assumptions back at them. It forces them to project their own fears, their own guesses, their own limitations onto you. And in that projection, they make mistakes. They overcommit. They hesitate. They reveal their own hands while trying to read yours. Consider the game of chess. The amateur announces their strategy. They talk about their opening, their favorite lines, their intended endgame. The master says nothing. They study the board. They calculate in silence. They let their opponent believe they understand the position, only to shift the entire structure with a single, unannounced move. The power is not in the piece itself. It is in the space between moves. It is in the silence that forces the opponent to play against a ghost. This principle extends far beyond games. It applies to negotiations, to leadership, to personal growth, to creative work. When you are building something meaningful, the early stages are fragile. They require protection. Not from malice, but from the natural entropy of outside opinion. Every time you share an unfinished idea, you invite interpretation. And interpretation dilutes intention. The mind that speaks too soon becomes scattered. The mind that holds its counsel becomes focused. Focus is the precursor to mastery. And mastery is always quiet before it is visible. There is a psychological reason why silence unsettles people. Human beings are wired to seek patterns. We crave predictability. We want to know what comes next so we can prepare, so we can feel safe. When someone refuses to give that information, it creates cognitive tension. The brain starts working overtime. It fills the void with speculation. It assumes hidden agendas. It projects threat or brilliance, often inaccurately. This is not manipulation. It is natural human psychology. And those who understand it do not exploit it cruelly. They respect it. They use it to create space for clarity, for timing, for execution that cannot be rushed. Think about the moments in your own life when you spoke too soon. When you announced a decision before it was solid. When you shared a plan that was still forming. What happened? Did it gain momentum? Or did it lose its edge? Did it become a topic of discussion rather than a vehicle for action? Most of the time, the answer is clear. Premature revelation trades potential for validation. It exchanges the quiet certainty of progress for the fleeting comfort of approval. And approval is a poor substitute for results. The masters know this. They do not seek applause during the process. They seek impact at the conclusion. They understand that the world does not reward the loudest voice. It rewards the most effective action. And effective action is almost always preceded by disciplined silence. Not the silence of fear. Not the silence of indecision. But the silence of calculation. The silence of alignment. The silence that says, I am not ready to be understood yet. I am ready to be undeniable. There is a difference between hiding and withholding. Hiding comes from insecurity. Withholding comes from strategy. The insecure person stays quiet because they are afraid of judgment. The strategic person stays quiet because they are protecting momentum. One is reactive. The other is intentional. And intention is what separates the amateur from the master. The amateur speaks to feel in control. The master remains silent to actually be in control. Look at the natural world. The predator does not announce its approach. The storm does not warn the landscape of its arrival. The seed does not declare its intention to become a tree. It works in darkness. It gathers strength. It aligns with conditions. And when the moment is right, it emerges. Not with a speech. Not with a promise. With presence. With undeniable reality. Human strategy is no different. The most powerful moves are those that arrive without warning, because they were never meant to be anticipated. They were meant to be experienced. This is why silence feels dark to some. It feels heavy. It feels unknown. But darkness is not evil. It is simply unlit. It is potential waiting for direction. The masters do not fear the dark. They understand it. They use it. They know that light reveals, but darkness conceals. And concealment, when used with discipline, becomes the foundation of advantage. You cannot outmaneuver someone who sees everything you are doing. But you can easily outmaneuver someone who is still trying to figure out what you are doing. There is a cost to this approach, of course. It requires patience. It requires tolerance for misunderstanding. It requires the strength to let others assume you are inactive while you are actually preparing. It demands that you trust your own timeline over the world's demand for updates. And that is not easy. We are conditioned to perform progress. To show our work. To prove we are moving. But real movement does not always look like motion. Sometimes it looks like stillness. Sometimes it looks like silence. And sometimes, that silence is the loudest declaration of all. Consider the artist who does not share the painting until it is finished. The writer who does not read drafts aloud. The entrepreneur who does not pitch the vision until the prototype works. They are not being mysterious. They are being protective. They know that early exposure invites early criticism. And early criticism, even when well-meaning, can distort the original vision. It can pull the creator into defense mode. It can shift energy from creation to explanation. And explanation is the enemy of execution. The masters avoid this trap. They build in quiet. They test in private. They refine without audience. And when they finally step into the light, they do not need to convince anyone. The result speaks. The outcome validates. The silence that preceded it becomes part of the legend. People look back and say, where did that come from? How did they do it? And the answer is always the same. They were working while others were talking. They were aligning while others were announcing. They were silent while others were scattered. This is not a call to isolation. It is a call to intentionality. You can collaborate. You can communicate. You can lead. But you do not need to broadcast your next step to do any of those things. In fact, doing so often weakens your position. It gives others the illusion of involvement. It creates false expectations. It turns strategy into spectacle. And spectacle is exhausting. It demands constant maintenance. It requires you to keep proving, keep explaining, keep justifying. Meanwhile, the quiet operator is free. Free to adjust. Free to pivot. Free to act when the conditions are optimal, not when the audience is ready. There is a rhythm to mastery that the noise cannot hear. It is the rhythm of observation, of calibration, of execution. It does not follow the calendar of public opinion. It follows the logic of the situation. And the situation rarely announces itself. It reveals itself to those who are watching, not those who are speaking. The masters know this. They train their attention. They discipline their impulses. They understand that every word spoken prematurely is a door left open. And doors left open let in drafts. Drafts cool the fire. Drafts scatter the focus. Drafts turn precision into approximation. Think about the power of the unspoken question. The pause before the answer. The space between statements. These are not empty. They are charged. They force the other person to lean in. To reconsider. To reveal more than they intended. Silence in conversation is a tool. Silence in strategy is a weapon. Silence in creation is a sanctuary. And those who wield it correctly do not need to explain why. The results do the explaining. We often confuse transparency with trust. But trust is not built by sharing everything. It is built by delivering consistently. By showing up when it matters. By following through without fanfare. The person who says little but does much earns a different kind of respect. It is not the loud, temporary kind. It is the quiet, enduring kind. The kind that says, I do not need to convince you. I will show you. And when the time comes, you will not need an explanation. You will only need to witness. This is the dark power of silence. It is dark not because it is harmful, but because it is unseen. It operates beneath the surface. It works in the background. It gathers strength while others spend theirs. And when it finally moves, it does not ask for permission. It does not seek validation. It simply changes the landscape. And those who are watching too closely to the noise will only realize what happened after it has already happened. If you want to master this, you must first unlearn the habit of premature sharing. You must stop measuring your progress by how many people know about it. You must start measuring it by how close you are to execution. You must become comfortable with being misunderstood. With being underestimated. With being forgotten, temporarily, while you build. Because the ones who are building are not looking for an audience. They are looking for a result. And results do not require an introduction. Practice the pause. Before you speak your plan, hold it. Before you announce your decision, test it. Before you share your vision, protect it. Let it mature in silence. Let it strengthen in private. Let it align with reality before you expose it to opinion. You will be surprised at how much clearer it becomes. How much sharper. How much more inevitable. And when you finally act, it will not feel like a gamble. It will feel like a conclusion. Because that is what it is. The end of a process that began in quiet. The world will not always understand your silence. Some will call it arrogance. Some will call it hesitation. Some will assume you have nothing to say. Let them. Their assumptions are not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to your objective, to your timing, to your execution. And execution thrives in the space between words. It breathes in the gaps. It grows in the stillness. It strikes when the noise has exhausted itself. Remember this, the loudest voices are rarely the most dangerous. The most dangerous are the ones you do not hear coming. The ones that move without announcement. The ones that act without apology. The ones that understand that power is not declared. It is demonstrated. And demonstration requires preparation. Preparation requires focus. Focus requires silence. So the next time you feel the urge to reveal your next move, pause. Ask yourself, who benefits from this information? Does it advance my position? Or does it simply satisfy my need to be seen? If the answer is the latter, hold it. Keep it close. Let it work in the dark. Let it gather momentum. Let it become undeniable. And when the moment arrives, do not explain. Do not justify. Simply move. Let the action speak. Let the result echo. Let the silence that preceded it become part of your strength. Because in the end, the masters do not win by being heard. They win by being effective. And effectiveness is born in the quiet. It is forged in restraint. It is delivered without warning. And it leaves no room for doubt. Only respect. Only results. Only the undeniable truth that the most powerful moves are never announced. They are simply made. This is the dark power of silence. Not as a shield. Not as a weapon. But as a discipline. A practice. A way of moving through the world that understands timing, respects strategy, and trusts results over rhetoric. It is not for everyone. It requires patience. It requires courage. It requires the willingness to be unseen while you become undeniable. But for those who choose it, it becomes the quiet foundation of everything they build. And when they finally step forward, the world does not need to be told what happened. It simply feels it. And that is enough.